and especially to speak about my favorite topics, which are regulations and the future of meat. So today I wanted to talk to you about regulating hybrid meat and what the future holds. So obviously, and we all know very well that the science and technology are moving forward at a rapid pace, but how are hybrid meat products regulated and how do we get them to market? This is a very novel area in terms of regulations. So I want to sort of delve into what we do know and also to identify what the knowledge gaps are. And I also want to provide you with some food for thought about how these hybrid meat products will be regulated and particularly labeled in the future. So what is hybrid meat from a regulatory point of view? So in the EU, there's no regulatory definition that covers hybrid meat. However, all ingredients and components that are used in hybrid meat products must be safe to enter the food chain. They must have a legal status and be approved for use in food. So how do you check the legal status of the ingredients? So the ingredients and components that you have in your hybrid meat products will fall into one of the following categories. So the first is non-novel ingredients. So these are food ingredients with a history of safe use prior to 1997 in the EU. So a good example is your soy protein. Then we have the novel food ingredients, and these are food ingredients or manufacturing processes that have not been used or consumed in the EU prior to 1997. So obviously good examples are the cell-based meat and certain protein isolates from plants that we haven't isolated protein from before. So mung bean is a good example. Then we have food additives, which are not food ingredients themselves, but they're added to food for a technological purpose. So food additives can be preservatives, emulsifiers, etc. And then we have the food flavors and colors, which are not, again, they're not food ingredients, but they're added to food to impart a particular color or flavor. So with the exception of of the non-novel ingredients, all of these products, so novel food, food additives, colors and flavorings, all need to be authorized and will all have an authorization. And within this authorization, it outlines the specific conditions of use. So what is a novel food? So a novel food in the EU is a food, an ingredient or a manufacturing process that has not been consumed or used in the EU prior to the 15th of May 1997. All novel foods need to be authorized before they can be placed on the market. And within the novel food regulation, there are 10 categories, and the most relevant for alternative protein and hybrid meat are foods consisting of isolated from or produced from microorganisms, fungi or algae, foods consisting of isolated from or produced from plants and their parts, and foods consisting of isolated from or produced from cell culture, tissue culture, derived from animals, plants, microorganisms, fungi or algae. It's also important to note that food enzymes, food additives, flavorings, extraction solvents, and GMO foods are not covered by the EU Novel Food Regulation and are all covered by their own regulatory frameworks. So how do you check the status of a novel food? So the first thing you do is you check the union list of novel foods. And it's important to note that novel foods are authorized for specific conditions of use, including maximum levels and also specific labeling requirements. So here's an example of an algal oil that's derived from a microalgae. So in the first column, you have the actual name of the approved novel food. Then in the second column, you have the specified food categories. So these are the types of food groups in which the novel food can be used. And then you have the maximum level that the food can be used at. And then finally, we have the specific labeling requirements. So in this case, you can use the algal oil in cereal bars at a level of 500 milligrams per 100 grams, but on the label of food, on the food label that includes this actual product, you have to specify and designate that it's oil from the microalgae Eulkenia species. So in terms of food additives, you can check the union list of food additives, which is contained in the annexes of the Food Additive Regulation. But you can also check the EC food additive database, but this is quite complicated and it is quite difficult to navigate your way through. So here's an example, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, which is methyl cellulose, and its E number, which is E461. And in this case, you can use methyl cellulose quantum satis, which means that there's no maximum limit, but you need to make sure that the level that you're using methyl cellulose is not any higher than it's needed to perform the intended purpose. And also, you mustn't use it in a way that would mislead the consumers. As I'm sure you're all very well aware that when labeling food additives, you need to include the E number on the label. And obviously, this has implications for clean labeling. So I wanted to just cover sort of regulating and labeling hybrid meat and sort of go through what we do know. So what we know is that all ingredients and components that are included in hybrid meat must have a legal status. We also know that the novel food regulation in the EU actually foresees cell-cultured foods, plant protein isolates, and also precision fermentation. So we don't have any cell-based meat products approved in the EU at the moment, but there are some examples of cell-based novel foods that are approved in the EU, which are not protein, but I'll go on to explain a bit more about this in the next couple of slides. And we also have some examples of products derived from precision fermentation that are already approved as novel foods. Again, it's not protein, but we have a human milk oligosaccharide, which I'll also explain a bit more in the next few slides. So what isn't new is also, hybrid products are not new, but a lot of the ingredients and the manufacturing processes that we're talking about here, particularly today, are new. We also know that there's the EU Green Deal, and the EU, it has very lofty ambitions for becoming the first climate neutral continent in the world. And really, it should be really pushing and advocating these sustainable sources of protein. And the other thing we do know very well here in the EU is that the regulatory approval process is very complex and very slow. So unfortunately, there's still a lot that we don't know. And one big question is whether cell-based meats and fats will be classified as animal products and whether they'll fall under the meat hygiene regulation. Another is how these products will be, what are they going to be called and how will they be labeled? Are we going to be able to use words like meat, chicken, beef, steak, mince, etc.? And even before we get to the issue of what to call these products and the labeling of these products in the EU, are the EU member states going to approve these products? And what pushback is there going to be from traditional farming communities? And finally, how long is it realistically going to take to get these products to market? So my optimistic estimate is in the next 2 to 3 years. So watch this space. So it's also good to look at what current authorizations are telling us. And here is an example of an approved novel food, which is derived actually from cell culture. So what's interesting here is that one, it's a novel food derived by cell culture. And two, that the specific labeling requirements allow the original Latin name of the plant to be used. And also it mentions the cell line, which is very good for IP purposes. So this is a very good precedent. And in the regulatory world, precedents are always a very good thing. And then another example is an approved novel food which is derived by fermentation using a genetically modified strain of E. coli. And so this is good because it's a human milk oligosaccharide derived by precision fermentation. And also, if you look at the labeling requirements that are outlined in the authorization, it doesn't say that you have to say that the product is derived from a microbial source, and it doesn't say that you have to refer to the fact that the producer strain is genetically modified. So one good thing here is, one thing to note, is that the only way that this product got approved using a genetically modified production strain is that in the final product, the applicant would have had to show that there was no recombinant DNA in the final product. And that is critical because if there was any modified DNA in the final product, then that would mean it would be a GM food rather than a novel food. And then what I've done here is mocked up a potential hybrid meat label. So this label includes all of the mandatory labeling particulars for a processed food product, which includes the name of the product, the ingredients in descending order of weight, storage and preparation instructions, the manufacturer, the net weight, lot number and best before date, and obviously the nutritional information. But what we don't know is what wording and terminology and qualifiers we will be able to use. You know, are we going to be able to call it meat? Can we call it beef? Also, where do these products belong in the supermarket? Are they going to be in the section next to the traditional beef products? And something to bear in mind, the most important thing about labeling is to ensure that the consumer can make an informed decision about what they eat and that the information provided on the label is in no way misleading. So something to think about is, you know, what would you call these products? And how would you differentiate them from standard meat products in a way that's clear but doesn't mislead the consumer? So something to think about. So that's me done. And I just want to leave you with some key take-home messages. So there's no specific regulatory framework or definition of hybrid meat products, but we do need to make sure that all of the ingredients are approved for use in food and must be used in accordance with the authorized conditions of use and any particular labeling requirements. We still don't know how the regulators are going to view cell-based products and precision fermentation-derived proteins. And also we don't know how or what they are going to be called. But to help us predict the future, we can always look at precedents and something that I really want to encourage everyone to do, so all of the stakeholders involved in the alternative protein world, is to work together to get these products to market and really lobby to get them labeled correctly. So thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out by email and I'll be very happy to help. Thank you.